Well, the DNC also featured longtime members of the Republican Party sounding off against President Trump and urging Americans to vote for Joe Biden. The group included former New Jersey Governor Christine Todd Whitman, former Republican Congresswoman Susan Molinari, Quibi CEO Meg Whitman, and Trump's rival in the 2016 GOP primary, former Ohio Governor John Kasich.
This isn't about a Republican or Democrat. It's about a person decent enough, stable enough, strong enough to get our economy back on track.
I've known Donald Trump for most of my political career. So disappointing and lately so disturbing.
I'm a longtime Republican and a longtime CEO. And let me tell you, Donald Trump has no clue how to run a business, let alone an economy.
I'm a lifelong Republican, but that attachment holds second place to my responsibility to my country. That's why I've chosen to appear at this convention. In normal times, something like this would probably never happen. But these are not normal times. Many of us can't imagine 4 more years going down this path. And that's why I'm asking you to join with me in choosing a better way forward.
In response, the Trump campaign issued a statement saying in part, quote, "The 4 Republicans featured at the Democratic convention tonight are nothing but useful idiots for the radical left."
That is a funny statement when you consider that while John Kasich was fighting his guts out, while Kasich was working with those of us who had just gotten to Congress, and we were all putting our political lives on the line to balance the federal budget, to cut spending, to return power, money and authority back to states and localities. Kasich, while he was leading that charge to balance the budget for the first time in a generation, and did it 4 years in a row. It hasn't been done in 100 years. While he was doing that, Donald Trump was giving money to Charlie Rangel, to Anthony Weiner, basically to people who were fighting. All of us conservatives who were trying to balance the budget and return more power, get it out of Washington and get it back to the people, back to the states, back to the local governments, back to the people. And so whoever the idiot was that wrote, the useful idiot that wrote that for a guy who was a lifelong Democrat who decided to switch to the Republican Party when he thought racism and birtherism would help him get the nomination. You're ignorant of history. You don't know what you're talking about. Susan Molinari knew her as well. She was on the front lines fighting just as hard for the conservative values that the Republican Party used to stand for. You know, yesterday we had George Will and Ann Applebaum and David Frum on the show talking about the conservative beliefs that, you know, balancing the budget, small government, again, returning power and authority back to the states, challenging the imperial presidency, trying to make sure that Article I powers were protected and preserved. All of the things that Donald Trump has worked hard against, even before this pandemic, running up the biggest deficits ever, running up the biggest federal debt ever, running up year after year the biggest budget ever, taking more power away unconstitutionally from the Article I branch of government. This is again, it's you have people that have been considered conservatives their entire life who will only be considered useful pawns of the radical left by people who had become members of a personality cult, who valued more power and the acceptance of Donald Trump than the conservative values, again, that this party once held dear. Robert Costa, it was interesting to see those Republicans speak last night. Also interesting to hear Michelle Obama talking about the need to get out and vote. And there's quite a back and forth. The Democrats are promising their supporters are going to do two things at once. One, they're going to work hard to get out the vote, to get the people out who didn't vote as much 4 years ago as they should have. And then on the other hand, they're assuring their supporters, they're assuring their voters that they're going to fight hard to protect the right to vote from Donald Trump and Republicans who seem to be doing whatever they can to make voting harder.
Joe, here's why those Republican remarks matter from last night. Going back to 2016, I used to go to suburban Starbucks in any city I was in, Milwaukee, Philadelphia, Columbus, Ohio, and I would meet a certain type of middle class to upper middle class Republican voter. And I would write down in my notebook that these were, quote, John Kasich Republicans. When I asked who they were supporting, they would almost never say Donald Trump. They would say, I'm a John Kasich Republican. And when I said, well, if it comes down to President Trump and Secretary Clinton, who are you going to go with? It was then candidate Trump. They said, well, I'm a John Kasich Republican, but I'd probably go with Trump. They were soft Trump voters, business-minded, conservative fiscally, maybe conservative socially, maybe moderate, but it was about a temperament. And these are voters that the Trump campaign and the Biden campaign know are out there. And I sat down yesterday at length with Jen O'Malley Dillon, who rarely grants interviews, the Biden campaign manager, and she talked about how the Biden coalition, she called it, is trying to reach out to these voters, these John Kasich Republicans, people like Meg Whitman, Christine Todd Whitman, and John Kasich, Susan Molinari, whether they're from a suburb or a city, who have a business-type mind, have had careers, and they do actually believe in norms. And that last night, beyond the First Lady's speech and Senator Sanders trying to unite the left, this was an overture to those types of voters and trying to give them an excuse, a reason to turn around from President Trump.
Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.